Okay, hi everyone. Good morning. Thank you to our webinar about COVID-19 related scams. We're very happy to have you. My name is Shauna Reeves. I'm Director of Elder Abuse Prevention at the Institute on Aging. I am joined by Glenn Fishman, Senior Program Coordinator of the Elder Abuse Prevention Program at the Institute on Aging, and Sally Yapis, who is with Open Door Legal and the Senior Elder Law Attorney. I may have mixed those terms around a little bit still, but I think I mostly got it. You can submit questions in the Q&A box throughout this talk, should you like to do that. We're going to today follow loosely a fact sheet that we created in partnership with Open Door Legal and also San Francisco Disability and Aging Services. So I'm going to try and do what I'm rarely good at, and that is share my screen. I'm going to try that right now.
And actually, Shauna, while you're doing that,
it's disabled. Yes.
While you're doing that, maybe we can. Normally, when we do these live events, we kind of do a raise your hand, what profession you're with.
That'd be great.
So it's fun to get an idea of who's in the audience today.
Thank
so
you.
We'll launch this poll. And if you can please click what your profession is so we get a sense and kind of tailor this talk today.
And while you're doing that, dear audience, Glenn, it's telling me that the host has disabled my screen sharing.
Oh no.
If so, that's okay. We can figure this out.
No, okay. I can share my screen and open up the thing.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. Just wait. Let me launch it. Okay. Let me wait till this poll is over and then I can share it. Just one more second if anybody can do it. The poll.
Okay.
Social work for the win.
Great. That's wonderful, because a lot of what we're going to talk about today definitely could share with your clients.
Great, thank you. So while Tammy's pulling up the FAQ, I can tell you a little bit about why we created it. So
there it is.
Glenn, yeah, and there it is. Glenn and I were honored to be part of a Zoom event with our district attorney in San Francisco a few months ago. It feels like decades ago, to talk about the emerging COVID-19 scams that we were hearing about and how to let people know what to look for and how to stay safe from them. Sil, my co-presenter, was on that call and asked one of the questions while we were on that webinar, which was, are you going to create a fact sheet about this? Because not everyone's online. If you create a fact sheet, that would be great, because then they could have it in hand. And I remember on the webinar saying, no, we're not going to do that. And then I had some hokey reason that it's difficult to create such a fact sheet, especially in the middle of a pandemic when the scam we write about today is going to be gone tomorrow. So why memorialize it and have it set in stone? I had some other reasons, but afterwards I called Sil and I said, I think we need to do the fact sheet.
So basically, I was a heckler and they took me seriously.
We're really glad you heckled, because we wouldn't be having this webinar. And also, on top of that, I asked Sil if he could co-host the fact sheet with us, and he was very
here
gracious.
I am.
Yes, so here we are. That's the story. I'm really glad that we did it, because we've had a lot of great response and reaction to it. You guys are all proof of that, being on this webinar. We've also translated it into Spanish, Russian, and Chinese, and we're working on editions for Santa Clara County, San Mateo County, and the Inland Empire. Fun fact, there's actually now a version for New Hampshire. We were written about helping that along, and so Tammy Hadani, who both put the fact sheet together and designed it so beautifully, helped create a template that can then be used for other places that want to tailor this to your local area. Because as you can see up on your screen, this is a very San Francisco-centric document. We decided not to put older adults in the title after originally having it in the title, and that's because the types of scams, the red flags, all of the things in the document, those apply to scams that are targeting people of all ages right now. So we wanted to make sure that people knew that. And often when someone picks up a fact sheet and they see senior in the title, they say, oh, it doesn't apply to me. Well, this applies to everyone up and down the aisle of all ages. Obviously, our resources and referrals at the end are tailored towards an elder audience. I do work for Institute on Aging, and still as an elder law attorney, so we wanted to make sure that the referrals were for seniors, but we also want to make sure that people know that these scams are hitting people of all ages. Again, big props to Tammy Hadani, Associate Director of the Institute on Aging's Elder Abuse Prevention Program, for creating this fact sheet. Please let us know if you would like a version for your own area, and we can send you the template so that you can create one for yourself. Another big thank you to Open Door Legal, big friend of the program, asker of questions while we're on webinars. We thank you so much for that. And also we thank San Francisco's Disability and Aging Services for being our main partner and funder for the Elder Abuse Prevention Program. And also thank you to all the agencies that agreed to be listed as referrals should people be scammed and need help. We have both legal referrals and then social referrals so that people can stay connected during the pandemic. So now I will talk about not just the fact sheet, but kind of the flow of it, and I think it will help you both understand what's going on, and then you'll have something in your hand later that you can distribute. So what's the current environment? Why is financial abuse taking off so much right now? So you've got a unique environment where you have elders who may or may not have been isolated already, are now super isolated in their homes, and they are scared. So that isolation that they're feeling, the fear, is this kind of perfect storm situation for people to try and rip them off. We don't make our best decisions when we're scared. And when we're isolated, we're at higher risk of abuse, seniors that is. So we want people to beware of scammers who are going to try and exploit that vulnerability. These are people who may pose as government officials, bank employees, health officials. They want your money and your sensitive information. And that could include Social Security number, Medicare number, bank account information, the gamut. So I wanted to set the stage for like why this is happening. Do we have any great hard numbers yet on how bad financial abuse is at this moment? Not yet, but we're only 3 months into the shelter in place in California. I know there are people from other states who are in different stages of that. We have been hearing from professionals who work on combating phishing scams that they've never seen anything like this. The phishing scams have not only exploded, but they've gotten far more sophisticated. So we do have some information there. So our plan for the fact sheet, I also want to talk about that because we have this online, obviously, and you can go look at the links on the Elder Abuse Prevention website. You can click them, download them. The primary purpose was so that people who didn't have internet access, people who are either don't have internet access or don't have the ability to look up fact sheets from the Institute on Aging or elsewhere, could have this sent to them. So our thought was to get it out through things like Meals on Wheels programs and other like case managers and things like that. This also could help elders who are in rural areas. So we're in San Francisco. The whole city is like 9 miles. It's not super spread out, but we still have elders in that isolated position. If you're in a rural place, you could think more creatively about how to get something like this out say through the mail, sure, but elders are so used to tossing their mail because it's full of scams that might not be the best way. I know some people have inserted such fact sheets and things into utility bills. That's another way you could do it. But this is really your time to get creative. Another thing that we found, and I think I found this to be true for most of my career, elders don't necessarily want to go to workshops about elder abuse. We can't right now anyway, so that's fine. But the research is increasingly showing that elders want to get information about elder abuse through media. So TV, radio, AM, people still listen to AM radio. Through print media, that's another way that elders want to get their information. They don't necessarily want to go to a workshop. So this was created with that in mind. Glenn, if you could tell our audience a little bit about where this is being distributed within San Francisco, I think that would be great.
Sure. So we had great response and collaboration with Meals on Wheels San Francisco. They were the largest one. They requested over 3,000 pieces to distribute. Project Open Hand in San Francisco. The City of San Francisco and Shanti Project has a program called CERV, C-E-R-V. It's a great volunteer program. They're going to be distributing it. And places like Little Brothers, Friends of the Elderly sends out health kits. So they're including it in their literature as well. One thing, if in your counties, if you're going to be working with these meal delivery systems especially, do check in first on specifications. For instance, Meals on Wheels requested it to be quarter folded, so it fits in the meal packet. So that's something just to think about ahead of time, is see if there's any certain restrictions, size restrictions and such. But we're sending out it actually last week, over 5,000 pieces have gone out in San Francisco.
See what you did, Sil, by asking a question? So we're getting a lot of comments here in the chat box about getting the template and getting this specific scam sheet, which is fantastic, including from a news organization. We'll absolutely send it to you. So thanks so much. If we could go back to the screen with the fact sheet on it, is that possible? Or maybe I'm just not seeing it in my version. What?
It's not up yet.
Okay. Oh, it's not up yet. Okay. So I will tell you, we decided and we thought about it long and hard not to just list a bunch of scams. My concern that I had before, I think still is valid. Once you put a bunch of scams up, make them very specific, the next day they will have morphed into something different. So we started, thank you, Tamara, by talking about how scammers will reach you. And this applies just as equally to COVID times as to the before times, before COVID and the shelter in place. I also want you to note that we talk about common scams and not only scams. That was also intentional. You don't want people to look at this list and think that's all that's going on. But first I'll get back to how scammers will reach you. It's all the ways that you would assume they would. Phone, text messages, calls, either live or robo, social media. I could go on and on about how my clients have been reached over the years, but I will say that I once had a client who was reached through Facebook by someone who said they were from the government and wanted to sell them a reverse mortgage. Now, none of that adds up, but that's what happened, and he was about to sign up for this loan before he got in touch with us, and I'm very glad he did. So salespeople are on Facebook, actually. And emails, obviously, we all get emails. Sometimes they go to our spam folder, sometimes they get through. Websites, it's a whole long training you could probably do on how to tell good from bad websites, but you will want to be careful about websites, especially ones that are sent to you, either through an email or phone text. And then there's in person, so people knocking on doors, people approaching you on the bus, in the store. You want to watch out for people who approach in all of those ways. So next, the common scams. Obviously not the only scams, I'll just say that again. Here are some of the ways that elders are being scammed right now during the crisis. By being sold fake respiratory masks, by being told that they can buy a vaccine kit or a testing kit to try and see if the person has COVID, obviously for testing, or can be cured of it, or prevent getting it. There are no cures for COVID right now. Obviously, there are no vaccines. So anything that's being sold that looks like this is a scam. Asking for charity donations. A lot of communities are being hit very hard. A lot of other countries are now being hit very hard outside of the US and the UK. And so people are asking for charity donations to go to organizations helping COVID-19 victims. You can look up charities at give.org or charitynavigator.org. But generally speaking, if someone's calling you to donate to a charity, you want to be very, very careful. If you want to donate right now, that's terrific. You should probably be in the driver's seat on that and find a place that you want to donate and then verify it, figure it out that it's legit, and then give your money. They might promise direct deposit of your stimulus check. This is something that we've been seeing. They might tell you that your Social Security check has been canceled or held up due to COVID-19 and try to get your personal information to verify that. So your Social Security number, for example. Never give anyone who calls you your Social Security number or your bank information or your Medicare number. They might offer relief money to those affected by COVID-19, so something like a stimulus, but it's not. They might say that a loved one has contracted COVID-19 and needs money wired for their treatment. You may or may not be aware of something called the grandparent scam. It's a very similar scam where someone calls and says that your loved one is locked up in a prison, generally overseas, and you need to send money to get them out. This is a kind of a riff on that. They might ask you to download a mobile app that tracks and sends you COVID-19 updates, and then probably tracks you and your phone and takes all your information. Be very careful of things like that. Not so fun fact, there were early reports that scammers were going door to door, knocking on doors and saying that they were from the local public health department. And they were then gaining entry into the home to either rob or assault the person or otherwise get at their, or scam them in some other way. And that story got picked up by local news outlets, and it was amplified by local police departments who were saying it was happening. And then it turned out that it was a hoax, that someone had put that out there, that was happening. It wasn't, and that it had been amplified and carried by news orgs. So we specifically decided not to put that in our scam sheet. Obviously, now that the scam has been reported, it's probably happening. It probably gave people ideas on what to do. It also is very similar to what we saw earlier with people pretending to be from local utilities in our area, PG&E, knocking on doors, getting into the home, robbing elders that way. So I'm not saying it's not happening, but we made the decision not to put it in our fact sheet because we have no evidence that it was happening. It's something to watch out for, obviously. But I'd say the number one thing people are asking me when they text or call about this or email is that, are people really pretending to be from the public health department coming into elders' homes? So that, even if it was a hoax, people heard about it and now they're very concerned about it. Is there anything else people are seeing? If so, I wanted to give you a chance to type it in the chat box.
And actually, Shauna, maybe while they're doing that, I could just bring up and remind people that scammers follow the headlines.
Yeah.
So there's, there are, topics that are ripe right now for scamming. For instance, I was going to bring up, and I already saw an article from our Attorney General Becerra today. Be on the lookout when we start doing contact tracing. They're concerned that people are going to be falsely representing an organization and requesting your Social Security number or your Medicare, Medi-Cal billing information, saying that you've been exposed to the virus or something. So these are just things that the scammers are, the minute news comes out, they're going to try to scam us on something.
Right. Thank you, Glenn. Up to the minute types of alerts on these types of scams. Thank you. Okay, for COVID-19. Aaron Helper, thank you. That was actually something that I was going, this is from Kim Moon at USC, National Center on Elder Abuse. This is something that I've been thinking about writing a separate fact sheet on. I'll get into that. Gift card scams at Lucky's. Yeah. Let me just talk about the helper scam. So there are many, many very cool grassroots groups that are popping up in every community out there to help elders get groceries and medications. It's wonderful. And I'm sure that the vast majority of people volunteering for these programs, doing these programs are great. It is very dangerous from an elder abuse prevention standpoint to have volunteers who have not been background checked, who have not been vetted in any way, gaining access and trust of elders who are very scared and hunkered down in their homes. I will say very proudly that the program in San Francisco that has been linking elders up with food and medications right now is amazing. They are doing background checks. They are tracking volunteers. They are making sure that the program is right for seniors. Some of them out there, however, are actively asking elders to directly wire money to volunteers who are doing shopping for them. You know, Venmo, PayPal, it's no big deal, just do it. Elders are forming relationships with these shoppers, and the shoppers might become like their best friends, who knows? Again, I've worked in this field for a long time, so I see scams everywhere, but I do think that we should be concerned about what might happen in these programs, both now and in the future. Not going to talk about it too much right now, but probably will do actually in the near future about how people can be safe. Some of my suggestions for that, if a volunteer program is providing both social support, like wellness checks for the elder, calling, checking in, those volunteers should be separate from the ones doing grocery drop-offs and medication drop-offs, so that that relationship is not mixed, and that financial information is not being shared with someone who's doing the social check-ins. I think that volunteers should be rotated. Everything should obviously be contactless all the time. And elders should probably, if the program itself is not using a third party, someone just said be careful of Venmo, definitely. A third party intermediary like the San Francisco program does, if the elder is being asked to give money directly to the shopper, the elder should probably enlist the help of a trusted, okay, it's not always possible to find someone you can super trust, but a third party to help make that transaction. That helps in two ways. The money relationship is not happening just from the elder to the volunteer, but also someone else is having eyes on the relationship that could be being formed between the volunteer and the shopper. Again, I could do tons of this, so I'm not going to, but there are also people who are pretending to do shopping and then not doing it. So I think that's what the person who wrote, I think that's what they were getting at, but what we're even more concerned about are the hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions, who are joining these new volunteer mutual aid programs and just need to be aware that something might happen in those programs. We also think that those programs are the perfect place for dissemination of information like the spec sheet. So the elder could get it directly, the volunteers could be trained on senior scams, so they could also be out there watching. Again, that's not the purpose of this webinar, but I'm glad that that was brought up. Okay, so now if we could just move on to red flags, and then we'll move on to Phil. Red flags, we also thought it was helpful, and instead of just giving you a laundry list of scams, to talk about what unites them. And again, a lot of these apply to the before times as well. Scammers are going to use a sense of urgency. They're going to tell you, act now. This deal that I have today will go away tomorrow. They'll try and pressure the person into acting quickly and buying the product or submitting their information immediately so that the person doesn't have time to think about it. They'll ask for payment via wire transfer or gift cards. Someone wrote in earlier, be careful of Venmo too, because you might send it to the wrong place and then you have no recourse. That as well. Just be careful when money is concerned. Requesting your social security number, Medicare number, credit card information, bank account information when you did not contact them, all huge red flags. And please hang up the phone, shut your computer, slam the door, whatever it takes. Links from unknown or unverified sources. Again, this is more difficult, easier said than done. Glenn knows more about this than I do, but there are ways that you can verify that a link is genuine or not. And the FTC and other government sites have really great information on that as well. You want to be aware also of emails from personal accounts, Gmails, AOLs, Hotmails, and not from like a real actual company. That's not to say that an email that is coming from an actual legit sounding company is legit, but you definitely want to be careful of the ones that only have personal emails. Websites that look like important COVID-19 news and information sites could have malware. Malware could damage your computer, get access to your information, and really just wreak havoc. So you want to be careful that you're looking at real sites, like the Johns Hopkins site on COVID-19, or I don't know, like a normal website, but not one that's like covid19foryou.com. Be careful of things like that. I'm sure that that website actually exists, and I'm sorry to whoever put it up. You just want to be careful that you're looking at websites that are not going to install malware in your computer. Unverified apps, kind of same sort of thing. You want to make sure that the app is downloaded, has the app that you download has a verified publisher from Google Play or Apple Store, because also those apps can lock your computer, steal your information. I wanted to give another shout out to a great organization that can help you with Medicare related COVID-19 scams and problems. Senior Medicare Patrol. If you go onto their website, smpresource.org, you can find the Senior Medicare Patrol office for your state. They provide trainings, but also information on scams related to COVID-19 and Medicare. Their main mission is for caregivers, elders, and families to spot, report, ferret out healthcare abuse and fraud and errors and things like that. So Senior Medicare Patrol. We didn't have room for them on our flyer, and we weren't just focusing on Medicare, so they're not on there, but I wanted you to know about them. Of course, there are more red flags, but I want you to hear still. There was one more thing I wanted to touch upon. We're talking very specifically about COVID-19 related scams. So when we think about that, we're thinking about scams that actually have COVID-19 or coronavirus in the title or as a theme. But the Department of Business Oversight in California recently pointed out something else that we had been worried about. And that's that this general environment that I discussed about elders having their guards let down because they're scared and they're isolated is also allowing in tons of other scams and like kind of taking advantage of the elder kind of situations. So they put out an alert about watching out for, at this point, foreclosure rescue scams, loan modification scams. Those are two things that we saw right before the housing market crashed and then somewhat after, but it's coming back and it's very depressing. Also getting elders to consider taking out equity right now. We've been seeing ads and solicitations about, this is a great time for an equity loan. I don't know about that, but just be very careful. Again, they're trying to get you to do it right now. Same with reverse mortgages. Reverse mortgages is a real legitimate product, but it's just not suitable for a lot of elders. Hard money loans are something that we've also been made aware of, and then seeing an uptick with those, and then also estate planning scams. I will end with saying 3 weeks into the shelter in place, I started to get concerned that my affairs were not in great order, and I have a toddler, and so I called up a friend who is a former estate planning attorney and said, I need to get this stuff done. And so he helped me, and that was very nice. And then he said, just keep in mind, Shauna, that everyone is thinking this, including elders, and they're the ones that are most vulnerable right now because they're going to run into bad news attorneys who are going to give them junk living trusts or wills. They're going to run into people who aren't attorneys doing the same thing. And they're going to run into salespeople who are going to say, we're going to help you with the living trust or will, and then they're going to sell them things like annuities. So I really took that to heart, and I wanted to share it with you all. Just to say, it's not just going to be COVID-19 scams that you're seeing, but also other crimes of opportunity. In conclusion, use this fact sheet. That's why we made it, not just to make Sil happy, but to make you all have something that you can share with your partners and your community. Now I want to turn it over to Sil. He's, again, senior elder law attorney at Open Door Legal, friend of the program, friend to us all. We love Open Door Legal. Sil's going to discuss what to do if you or someone you know has been scammed, and then what to expect from the help that you enlist, including what to bring to say in a meeting with an attorney, and just kind of to understand what's in store for you. And he'll also discuss where to get help. As I mentioned earlier, the scams here are pretty San Francisco intensive. The ones for social care actually do apply more generally to California. If you're outside of California, your mileage will vary on this, but I'm convinced and very confident that you could also make this fact sheet work for you. That's all I wanted to say about what we've done here with this fact sheet. And again, like, thanks to everyone who's helped us work on it and make it a success and distribute it. And now I just want to say, take it away, Sil.
Thank you, Shauna, and thank you to the Institute on Aging for inviting Open Door Legal to collaborate on the fact sheet and for the incredible work you do. A little bit about me. I'm the senior elder law attorney at Open Door Legal. We're creating the first system of universal access to civil legal help. We have 3 legal offices in San Francisco, in the Bayview Hunters Point, the Excelsior, and the Western Addition neighborhoods. And a lot like a legal emergency room, we exist for people who may not know exactly what their legal issue is, may not have money to afford a lawyer, may have been rejected from other firms in the past, but still have valid legal claims. In my department, we do a number of things, including revocable living trusts for seniors, probate litigation, and we handle affirmative elder abuse restraining orders and other also things like this, affirmative elder abuse cases for financial abuse or fraud. And we've handled scams for cash, mortgage fraud by institutions, including reverse mortgages, cases where seniors were tricked into signing for cars, tricked into giving their houses away, and things like that. So this stuff is happening, and lawyers like myself all across the state are working to stop it and fix it if it's already happened. Now, Shauna's already talked to you about how to prevent scams. So I want to talk about what we do if somebody's already been scammed. First, always first, call the police and or adult protective services so they can get to work on finding the perpetrator and getting money back if that's possible. Then you should consult a civil attorney so they can get to work on fixing your problem as well. Civil attorneys, unlike criminal attorneys, have one core objective, and that's to make you whole again. And that can range from getting money back for you, getting your house back, maybe preventing an eviction, enforcing a contract, anything it takes to bring you back to the position you were in before the bad thing happened. When you go to a civil lawyer, you're going to want to bring any correspondence you've had with a potential scammer, any emails, letters, text messages, any accounts of verbal conversations you've had with them, any checks of funds you've sent them or other transactions you've entered. You'll need to explain how you and this scammer became acquainted, how they contacted you, why you agreed to send them money or information. And here's an important thing: you're going to need to have information about the scammer's identity and address. Many scammers use fake names or are located in foreign jurisdictions. Your attorney, unfortunately, is not a detective, and we are not going to be able to find out who a person is if they're located in a foreign country or have used a fake name and haven't given you any indication of who they are. And if we can't find them, we can't sue them and get the money back. So if you don't know who somebody is or where they live, don't give them your money. And the same goes for your clients. We most likely won't be able to help. In terms of setting expectations clear, what's going to happen when you go to a civil lawyer? Assuming you've given your lawyer all the information they need to file a lawsuit, this is what you should expect. First and foremost, litigation is very long and very slow. It can take 1 to 2 years from the start of a lawsuit to trial, maybe even longer. I've seen cases go as long as 10 years in some cases. It's a long time, and it's not your attorney's fault. It's just the system. It is slow. Your attorney will start the lawsuit by filing something called a complaint in court. The other side will have a chance to respond, and then both sides will have a chance to exchange information over a period of months. And eventually, you're going to get to a trial. Throughout the litigation process, that many months or years, there will be discussions of settlement where both sides may agree to dismiss the litigation if the defendant pays you money. Your attorney and you will have an option to accept any offer or continue with the lawsuit. And eventually there may be a trial. Most cases do settle before reaching that point. All right, so where to get help? This is important. If you're in San Francisco, in the areas that we serve, you can get help at Open Door Legal. We do, however, only serve clients from certain neighborhoods in San Francisco, although we are planning on expanding our service area soon. California Advocates for Nursing Home Reform has a wonderful legal lawyer referral service where you go to them and they'll find you a lawyer who may be able to take your case. Legal Assistance to the Elderly specializes in cases targeting the elderly. Bay Area Legal Aid and a number of other firms in the Bay Area. Again, this is specific to the Bay Area. That's all I had lined up, Shauna. I look forward to working with all of you to try and stop some of these issues from happening.
All right. Well, I'm sure you have more than that to talk about, Sil.
Well, I thought we were going to wait about 20 minutes for questions.
I know. No, that's all I wanted to say. But yeah, so now we'll open it up for questions for sure.
Yeah, so there is, Sil, there's just an immediate question about repeating the part about the California Nurses Legal Org, if you could.
Oh, California Advocates for Nursing Home Reform.
Oh, got it. Okay.
They have a lawyer referral service.
I'll write that in.
And they're on our fact sheet as well.
They are, yeah.
And they have both a panel for estate planning attorneys and a panel for elder abuse attorneys, and so that is really your place to go for a lot of what we've been talking about. And they're one of the partners on our fact sheet.
Great. Anything else before we go into the Q&A? Did any of the panelists have anything else to add?
Well, I'd like to make a plug for our Twitter page, because we post a lot of these things on there almost daily, news scams and resources. So it's at End Elder Abuse. So follow us and you'll see updates on scams.
Thanks. All right, so if you have any questions, please submit them in the Q&A option on Zoom. I'm gonna go through some of the questions. First, initially, is the Friendship Line nationwide or is it only for California residents?
As Institute on Aging representative, I will tell you, Institute on Aging's Friendship Line is the hotline that is national in scope. The focus right now has been on California since the governor announced Friendship Line California, focusing more on elders in our state, but it is a national resource for you to use.
Great. Anything else to add to that, Glenn, for Friendship Line or anything more?
Not really. I think it's on the fact sheet. And they're
Friendship Line's definitely featured on our fact sheet. Emotional support, well-being checks, for those of you who aren't familiar, support with those who are grieving loss, and referrals for people over 60 and those with disabilities. And right now it's been for a great help for people who are sheltering in place and need someone to talk to.
Okay, the next question is, so I know, Sil, you mentioned that if older folks or if victims do not have the name of the scammer, it's hard to have recourse. Can you tell them what some of their options would be if they don't know the scam? So maybe like a general scammer or someone claiming to be like a nonprofit or a company. What are some steps they could do, like maybe file a police report or call the DA's office, things like that?
Right. So if you've been scammed, first and foremost, alert the authorities, because they may be doing this to other people and they may have the investigative tools that they need to identify the person. If it's a person pretending to be an organization or a nonprofit. Potentially, we're going to be able to look to see if they're incorporated or something like that, or if their name has been registered with the state. If none of those are there, and we don't have a name and address, an actual name or address, or some other identification for the person, a civil legal attorney isn't going to be able to do much. Potentially, law enforcement's the only option there to really find out who this person is. And then once you have an identity, potentially the civil lawyer will be able to help. So again, first and foremost, go to APS, go to the police. I hope that answered your question. It's a frustrating thing for me too when clients come to me and they say, I gave this person all my money, I don't know who they are, and they're in China.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Sil. I would also encourage calling Adult Protective Services. They can help. I know it's always case by case, so it's always helpful to have someone that can help navigate some of the systems, like maybe working with the bank to stop any transactions or to get statements and collect some evidence, but also do make a police report, just so you have evidence of a crime if anything else should come of it, and the DA's office and the local authorities can track if this is happening a lot in San Francisco or in certain neighborhoods, and can figure out those patterns.
Oh, that does lead me actually to one more thing. If you can't find the identity of the person, but it was an abnormal transaction, say you have a senior who has, I don't know, $100,000 in their bank account, and they send it all to one person in one transaction with no prior history of anything like that, you may be able to hold the bank liable. Because they should have identified that, and they should have flagged it, and they should have prevented it. Still, go consult with a lawyer, a civil lawyer. They may be able to find somebody to hold liable to bring you back to where you were before.
Thank you. Okay, another question is, what do you do if your identity and personal information have been compromised and you have identity theft? What are some great first steps? I know it's a long process, but some first steps in trying to go back from that.
I always wish I had this website memorized, and I don't.
Yeah.
The FTC has a beautiful identity protection website. It's literally, it's like what to do. And it asks you questions about exactly what happened, and then it tailors a plan for you. It's as close to perfect as I've ever seen a government website. I could try and look it up right now and put it in the chat box, but FTC, identity theft, Google those two things, and hopefully that tool will pop up for you. That's my absolute favorite. Sil, do you have additional?
If somebody's had their identity stolen, I'm sorry, but this is going to be your territory, Shauna.
Okay, all right. Well, Jamie Goddard put the website for what I was talking about in the webinar chat. Yeah, try it. First, start identitytheft.gov. It is an FTC site. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau can also be helpful in this regard, but in terms of trying to clean up the mess after a breach, after your identity has been stolen, the FTC website on identity theft is perfect. Yeah, I can't give like step-by-step instruction on what to do because it's case by case, and that that website actually figure that out already. But I think that's a great place to go.
Great. Thank you. Oh, I did want to say someone from the DA's Victim Services Office said if the crime hasn't been documented, they do encourage to file a police report. And if they're referred to that office, they'll work with APS and other agencies as well. So the police report is always just good, even if no actions may be taken, just to have. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And DA Victim Services is on our fact sheet as well because they're one of our favorite partners, and they have advocates who specialize just in serving elders. They also put out videos on COVID-19 scams that are also translated into additional languages. They're wonderful.
Yeah, Great. And then this is a great question. What is the process to make referrals? Is there a form or do we call them directly, the agencies directly? So for example, I guess the agency's on our sheet.
I guess that's going to depend by agency. For us, you can either sign up for an intake with a lawyer on our website or call our front desk directly. And I guess it can't hurt to call the other agencies directly.
Yeah, I would recommend also calling. And actually, I had a good exercise in that because I had to confirm all of these URLs and phone numbers. So I did call all these agencies, and there's leaving messages or people answer and give you instructions. So calling is probably the way to go.
So there generally is an intake process, but yeah, the phone numbers that we have on here are the best entry points for people, and then the websites can tell you a lot too. I do like how Open Door Legal gives you the option. You can either talk to the intake person or you can start your case intake online. It's very helpful.
Yeah. I think as Glenn has already done a lot of the legwork, so all of these agencies are anticipating and are ready for referrals. So they are on deck, and like Shauna had mentioned earlier, we are in the process of verifying other referrals for other counties in California that Institute on Aging is working in specifically. So those will be rolling out as well. So we're really excited. But yeah, okay. The next question is, how often are perpetrators of these crimes actually apprehended? I receive email scams daily. Can they be traced? And maybe you want to talk about the U.S. Postal General. Am I saying that right?
Inspector?
Yes.
Yeah. I feel like the person who asked that question probably already knows the answer. Not tons of people being brought to justice for abusing elders, especially through these means. There are a number of reasons for that, and this isn't to justify it, but just to let you know what's up. There aren't a ton of resources dedicated to this. And then on top of that, the scammers have gotten increasingly sophisticated, and so they are doing things that make it very hard for you to figure out who they are. They might be operating overseas. They might have structured their scam in such a way that you're not sending money directly to the scammer, but you're sending money to someone else who has been scammed, who then sends it to someone else who's been scammed, who then sends it to the person who's scamming you. So mules and layers and things like that. So not tons of people being brought to justice, as I said earlier. That's really kind of the purpose for why we created this fact sheet. We want to get people prepared and aware so that they don't have to deal with the aftermath, but we also know that that's not entirely realistic. That's what I'll say about that. I think that's why we also wanted to bring up your right to attempt to get a civil attorney in these cases, especially for cases involving large dollar amounts where you know who did what. A civil attorney is probably going to be your best bet. I wish I had a better answer, and I wish I could say that things are getting better, and I really don't have evidence that it is.
Yeah.
Can I just point out Debbie Deem, our hero, just wrote in that you should also definitely be reporting to the IC3.gov website. That's the internet database and website for portal for reporting these scams. It's available to all sworn law enforcement to access, FBI, postal inspectors. I'm just reading what Debbie wrote because she's the master of this. FTC and financial institutions, and she did point out that hundreds have been arrested in the last 3 years. So you probably don't want to hear hundreds, you want to hear hundreds of thousands, but we're just being honest here. Arrests have been made, and you want to make sure that you report what's happened to those websites so that they can compile the data and figure out kind of where to go from there. I think it also helps that it's multidisciplinary and interagency. That's always helpful in situations like this. So yes, thank you so much, Debbie.
Yeah, thank you. And I would encourage, it's more likely to get investigated and possibly prosecuted with the more reports. And so if we can, that's why it's so important to report to authorities.
Yeah, and Debbie's also pointed out, and I was going to say this, the DOJ, when they do sweeps and when they do make arrests, they publicize them, and you can look for those arrests on the press releases portion of the DOJ website. That's the federal DOJ. I think Debbie's trying to give us some hope here, and that's greatly appreciated. So you can look for what's been going on with federal DOJ, and I know states have also been doing heroic things. And this isn't to say that people aren't lifting a finger, they don't care. That's not it. It's just, of course, we'd like to see more action than actually being done.
Great. Okay, another question, which I think was a great question. Now that they're going to do contact tracing possibly and have these people, how can they verify a call from a contact tracer regarding COVID-19? I don't even know the answer to this, but this is something maybe we could have on our radar when we start rolling this out, because I think that is a great question.
And also, it's just important to realize a contact tracer will never ask for a social security number. They won't ask for money. They won't ask for any identifying information. So that's a tip off right away if it's going to be legit or not.
Wired magazine just did a great story on contact tracing scams. I was thinking in my head, oh, this is going to be really hard. We're going to see a lot of contact tracing scams. So I Googled it, and they're already happening, and Wired did a good story on it. The problem is those programs are just, they're being created now, like as we speak today. And so it's hard to tell people how to protect themselves if the contact tracing programs aren't necessarily up and running or functional. They're happening, but people are still being trained, and the programs are still in the process of being created, and there's gonna vary state by state, even county by county. But I would suggest looking up contact tracing scams and Wired magazine, and you'll see a little bit about what's happening there. I'd say be careful how much information you're attempting to digest on these things. We at the Elder Abuse Prevention Program do it all the time, but it can also be quite overwhelming. So we're telling you, read up, do all this stuff, but also pace yourself, take care of yourself. We're giving you a lot of heavy information. Just good information, but we also want you to not be overwhelmed, and we want you to know that there is some hope out there.
All right. And then another specific question is, who could help if a person's stimulus check was stolen? Calling the IRS for an elder is very difficult and overwhelming. For anybody, I guess, but also an elder.
Mm-hmm. I think that's where our referral agencies can be very helpful. There's not a central agency that's just working on stimulus check problems right now. But we have on our website or on our fact sheet, in addition to Open Door Legal, Bay Area Legal Aid, Housing and Economic Rights Advocates, Legal Assistance to the Elderly, of course, Canner, probably not for stimulus check issue. But I feel like if you don't know where to start on an issue like that,
Civil legal.
calling one of those agencies would help.
Yeah. Civil lawyer will be able to help with that.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then let's, I think maybe one more question. What language do you suggest for family, friends, or caregivers to use with a suspected fraud victim elder who is embarrassed to acknowledge that they might have been scammed?
I've been taking up all the space and airtime, so Sil, did you want to talk about that?
I mean, this isn't an easy thing to address.
Right.
And there is.
Just picked over the hard question to you.
I mean, there's so much shame, and there's so much vulnerability, and there's a lot of self-hatred that they allowed this to happen to themselves, and it's just a matter of empathizing and speaking heart to heart and telling them that it's not their fault and that they didn't do anything wrong, and letting them know that you're on their side and that you don't judge them. And if you come to the table like that, I think not only are you going to build trust and rapport with yourself and your client, but you're going to enlist their help in getting to the bottom of it and sort of getting the information you need to actually help them. So it's not an easy question.
Yeah, you know, if I can also mention, I also kind of word it as like, this perpetrator is probably doing this to other people as well. So it'd be really helpful by coming forward, because you can help other older adults to be kept from getting scammed.
Right.
Right. Well, yeah, the stigma doesn't help. One of our main goals at the Institute on Aging's Elder Abuse Prevention Program is to really cut back on that stigma and not blame the victim. One of my favorite campaigns combating elder abuse back in the day was in San Bernardino. I don't know if we have anyone from that county on this call, but it was the campaign, the title was "It's Not Your Fault." And that's what we want to convey to people, because once you realize it's not your fault, you're more likely to get the help that you need. The scammers are too good. It's not you're stupid or you're duped or you shouldn't have done it. The scammers are dedicating their lives to ripping you off. It's really unbalanced that way. So the idea is to not feel shame and to just get help.
Yes. And, you know, a lot of these cases are going to be sophisticated financial schemes that, you know, the police, lawyers, social service providers are even going to have a difficult time understanding and wrapping their head around. And so for clients, yeah, it's not their fault. And just communicating that clearly is very important.
Yeah, Charles from 7 on your side says that they have a resource for this too. He might have a link, but his main takeaways were: don't blame the victim, and scammers are very smart and clever, and don't put any judgment towards their actions or decisions.
And also, he was asking if we could share that campaign. It was like 10 years ago. So sorry. I probably, if it's still up and running, I'll find it for sure.
Well, thank you. We're at 10:59. Thank you guys all for attending this webinar. Thanks to Sil and Shauna and Glenn. So we will follow up by sending you guys the handouts or the links to the handouts. And also know that the Elder Abuse Prevention Program is available for consults if you guys ever need for elder abuse in any way. And also, please report to Adult Protective Services and the police department if there are any suspected cases. Any closing remarks?
Thanks for being on the call, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great.
Bye.
Bye.